Welcome to our channel Know the Law, and here I am, Advocate Jyoti Chordia. Today we are going to study the Article 13 of the Constitution. In the earlier video, we have studied the Article 12 in which the definition of the state was provided. Now, what is provided in Article 13 will be studied from here on. But before that, please watch our video till the end to know what the Article 13 consists of and what all provisions are there and how it helps to protect the fundamental rights of the citizens in any way. So now let's begin with our today's topic, that is Article 13 of the Indian Constitution. As we know that people still believe in law no matter what, and to keep that belief alive, the drafting committee gave the concept of the fundamental rights in the part 3 of the constitution, which gives the liberty to the citizens of India and protect it from being infringed or violated by the state, as we have earlier studied the definition of state under Article 12. So, from the protection of such infringement, the Article 30 it has given the liberty, and that liberty, for the protection of that liberty, the Article 13 have been incorporated. It also provides for the remedy if their fundamental rights is violated. So, in the fundamental right part itself, the remedy in case of the violation of these fundamental rights is also provided. So, to keep that belief of the people alive in the state, that means in the authorities or in the functioning of the state, to keep that hope and alive and while protecting those fundamental rights in the constitution in India, the Article 12 and 13 were introduced. Whereas Article 12 gives the definition of the state and tell us about the responsibility about a responsibility of the state that it has towards the people and their fundamental rights, whereas Article 13 of the Indian Constitution, which presents itself in the four parts, that means the Article 13 have been divided into four clauses, which makes the concept of the fundamental rights more powerful and gives it a real effect. This article protects the individual's fundamental right by rendering any law null and void if it intervenes with the liberty or is inconsistent in any way with the fundamental rights of the person. That means it just gives a protection or a cover to the fundamental rights, which we are going to study from here on after Article 13 onwards. It gives like a protection, like on the earth we have the ozone layer, which protect us from the harsh rashes of the suns and various other forces from the outer universe. In the same way, Article 13 is the cover for the protection to the fundamental rights of the people against the violent activities which may take place by the state or their authorities as such. So now just we will read out what is mentioned under Article 13. We will do a direct reading of Article 13, and then we will understand what are the objectives and aim or motive behind the insertion of such clauses or Article 13 in the Constitution. So, the Article 13 reads out as follows. The law inconsistent with or in derogation of the fundamental rights. The wording itself starts with the laws which are inconsistent or in derogation of the fundamental rights. What will happen of those laws are mentioned under Article 13. So, among them, the first is that is Clause 1. It speaks that all laws in force in the territory of India immediately before the commencement of this constitution, in so far as they are inconsistent with the provisions of this part, shall, to that extent of such inconsistency, be void. Clause 2. The state shall not make any law which takes away or abridges the rights conferred by this part, and any law made in contravention of this clause shall, to that extent of the contravention, be void. Clause 3. In this article, unless the contest otherwise requires, a law includes any ordinance, order, bylaw, rule, regulation, notification, custom or usages having in the territory of India the force of law. B. Laws in force includes laws passed by or made by legislature or other competent authority in the territory of India before the commencement of this constitution and not previously repealed, notwithstanding that any such law or any part thereof may not be then in operation either at all or in particular areas. Clause 4. Nothing in this article shall apply to any amendment of this constitution made under Article 368. So, after barely reading the Article 13 of the Constitution, now let us study all these provisions in detail one by one. So begin with our clause 1 of the Article 13. Before that, let us study briefly in whole Article 13 and then we will start the clause by clause explanation. So after barely reading this article, we can classify the laws under two sections or the two parts. The first part will be of the law existing laws and the second part is of the future laws. What is meant by the existing laws? Existing laws means the laws which were there before the commencement of the constitution. That means this part states that any such law will become void if it violates any fundamental right despite of being incorporated before the incorporation of the fundamental rights in the constitution. Such law shall be declared as unenforceable or non-east by the competent court before which it shall remain in force as any other law unless and until the government decides sorry government not sorry until the court decides that the particular law which was in existence before the commencement of the constitution then such a law is void until and unless that then it will be enforceable in India. Uh, Law existing means any law X, Y, Z, any law which are present and enforceable are and also still in force in India even after the commencement of the constitution and not declared void by any of the such acts of the state, then uh, and it comes to the notice of the court that such particular law and violates any of the fundamental or breaches the fundamental rights of the people, then and then only such laws can be declared as null and void. Otherwise, it will remain as in force as any other laws which are made after the commencement or which will be made up from here on. And next categories of the future laws, that simply means this part talks about the future laws that may be made by the competent authority or the legislature and acts as a restriction on such authorities to make laws that are derogatory towards the part 3. It ensures a duty upon the legislature to keep in mind existing fundamental rights and make laws accordingly, and if not, such laws will be declared as void and unenforceable by the court of law and shall thereon have no legal effect. That means Article 13 will also act as a warning, caution, or warning to the legislature or any other authority who makes by the power of delegation power can make any laws to them the sign of warning, or that they cannot make such laws which can infringe or which can violate the rights of the fundamental rights of the people. And even in that case, after the warning sign is kept in mind, even in that case the such laws are passed, then it can be stood as null and void then and there only, and it will not come into effect from there on. The Article 13 also provides a basis to the judicial review, since it gives the Supreme Court and the High Courts the authority to interpret the pre-constitutional laws as well as the law made after the commencement of the Constitution and decide whether they are in sync with the principles and values of the present Constitution or not. That means after going or barely reading the Article 13, it gives a way out to the judiciary, especially the High Courts and the Supreme Court, to see whether the existing laws and the laws which were already in force in India are in the range of the constitution or not, or fits into the box of the constitution or not. If in any way they are violating the ranges or the coming out of the box of the constitution and violating the fundamental rights of the people, then such laws will be held as void by the judiciary. So it's a way forward for the judiciary as well, to see that the laws are intact and doesn't violate any of the fundamental rights which are mentioned under the part 3 of the constitution. So coming to the next, that is the now interpretation parts. Let's begin with it. The first interpretation is of the clause 1 of article 13. As per clause 1, any law that have been forced in country before the commencement of the constitution and if found to be inconsistent with the fundamental rights would be declared void to the extent of its inconsistency. That means if any law which had been in force before the commencement and still in force in after the commencement of the constitution, but it violates the fundamental rights, then it can be held as void to the extent of the inconsistency. That means the act consists of suppose 20 sections, and in that 20 section only 3 to 4 sections violate the fundamental right, then only those 4 and 5 fundamental rights will be, sorry, sections will be removed, and the whole act can be carried forward, will be enforceable except those 4 to 5 sections. This is the meaning of this article. Uh, to which extent the can give a null and void effect to the act. It also says that it is important to mention that here that such laws become void only when so declared by the courts and not before that. That means only and only after the court declares that particular act which was earlier uh, in force before the commencement and still in force in the after the commencement, and now after more particular years or after the time lapse it have came before the court to decide whether the still it can be allowed practice in India, then only if the court says it can be enforceable then it can continue the enforcement. If the court declares that it cannot be enforced, then and then only it can be the null and void effect can be given to the that particular law. It further says that acts done before the commencement of the Constitution and in contravention or in pursuance of the existing law, that after the commencement of the Constitution becomes inconsistent with the fundamental right shall not be affected. That means it gives, from this we can understand that this article doesn't give the retrospective effect done to the acts before the commencement of the constitution or before giving the null and void effect to such things. Any act in that manner have been done, it cannot be touched upon. It gives the prospective effect, means after declaring in null and void, then thereafter if any act is done considering such act which is now uh, declared as null and void, then such acts will be taken action. Actions can be taken against such acts and not the acts done which are previously done before giving the null and void effect to the same act. But the court also have divided by deciding such a number of cases came up with the two doctrines. Among them, the first is the doctrine of the eclipse that was evolved by the Supreme Court in the Keshwam Madhavan versus State of Bombay, in which the court said that the law which is infringing the rights of the citizens after the commencement of the constitution is void ab initio for the citizens of the country but will remain enforceable for non-citizens and the companies. The doctrine of eclipse makes the law unenforceable, but it doesn't make the law void ab initio. So, what is actually meaning of the doctrine of eclipse? Doctrine of eclipse that inconsistent law, though becomes out of wake or out of date, but not completely dead. That means any particular law which is out of date but will not be declared as dead. It is eclipsed by the fundamental rights and can be alive through some constitution amendments. As we see, there are solar eclipse where the sometimes moon hides behind the sun and sun hides behind the moon. In such a way, the court declares may declare sometimes that a particular act is out of date or cannot fit in this particular scenario of the time frame for a particular years or particular period, then it will remain as a deadlock or in the laws, but it cannot be enforced. It cannot run as an active member. It will become a passive member or a passive act. But after amending or making some changes in that act, it can be brought alive later on if uh, the time is needed or it is declared by the court that by after amending such uh, sections or particular sections or making inserting some particular changes, the again the particular act can be brought to life. That is the meaning of doctrine of eclipse, which was evolved from the Madhavan Menon versus State of Bombay. Again, the case was evolved again in the case of Bhikaji versus State of Madhya Pradesh, in which the court held that any law existing before the commencement of the constitution which is inconsistent with any of the provisions mentioned in part 3 of the constitution is simply not void but becomes unenforceable. Again, the second doctrine which is evolved by the Article 13 Clause 1 is the doctrine of severability. Severability clearly means to separate. According to this doctrine, not the whole act is considered void, but only the impeached part which is contrary to the provisions of Part 3 of the Constitution, that is fundamental rights, will be considered as void provided that the impeached act is separable. That means if the act consists of the 15 to 20 sections, in that the 4 to 5 sections violates the fundamental rights. So by removing such defects from the act or removing that particular sections from the act, the whole act can be again brought into enforceable. Only the condition is that if after removing such sections, the base or the motive or the aim of that act should remain the same. Otherwise, there is no use of separation of that particular section from the act. Um, so this is the bare meaning of doctrine of severability. It was the doctrine of severability was propounded by the Supreme Court in the case of A.K. Gopalan versus State of Madhya Pradesh in 1950 itself. In this case, the Section 14 of the Preventive Detention Act of 1950 was in question. It provided for the severing of this inconsistent part from the constituent part of the law, meaning thereby the part of any law that is in derogation of the fundamental right guaranteed to the citizen shall be separated out from the major part that is in promotion of the Indian Bill of Rights. That means the fundamental rights. That means this in this case the Honorable Supreme Court says that whatever the part of the act violates the fundamental rights should be removed and the remaining act can be brought into enforce again. So now moving further, in the RMDC versus Union of India in 1957, the Apex Court had laid down the following rules regarding the use of doctrine of severability. That means the Honorable Apex Court or the Supreme Court laid down the guidelines or the rules regarding how the doctrine of severability can be used or to what extent and in which cases it can be used. So let us read out and study them one by one. The first rule is that the intention of the legislature behind enacting the act is important to decide whether the impeached part is separable from the whole act or not. Secondly, in determining the legislative intent on the question of separability, it will be legitimate to take into account the history of the legislation, its object and title and preamble to it. Third, if the impeached provision is not separable from the whole act, then the whole act will be considered as void. Fourthly, if the inquest provision is separable from the whole act, but the whole act forms a part of a single scheme which was intended to be operated as a whole, then also the whole act will be considered as void. Fifthly, likewise, when the valid and invalid parts of a statute are independent and do not form a part of a same scheme, but what is left after omitting the valid portion is so thin and truncated as to be in substances different from what it was when it emerged out of the legislature, then also it will be rejected in its entirety. Sixthly, the separability of the valid and invalid provisions of the statute does not depend on whether the law is enacted in the same section or different section. It is not the form but the substances of the matter that is material and has to be ascertained on the exemption of the Act as a whole and of setting of the relevant provisions therein. Seventhly, if after the invalid portion is expunged from the statute, what remains cannot be enforced without making the alterations and modifications therein, then the whole act of must be struck down as well. Otherwise, it will amount to judicial legislation. That means, by way of these rules, the Supreme Court wants to see that if any of suppose XYZ is an act and it consists of the 20 sections, and if from that the uh, 8 to 10 sections violates the laws or the fundamental rights part of the constitution, then it should be separated. But to what extent? If after removing such part or sections 10 to 9 sections from the act, uh, the meaning of the act is lost, even if the particular sections are not separable. Again, in the case, uh, it requires lots of amendments to the sections or the to the act to again bring that life or bring that act into enforceable or in a working condition, or such act only remains with a few sections, then there is no use of retaining the whole uh, the other section, then in such cases the whole act will be held as null and void. Next, now coming up to the next provision, that is uh, clause 2 of article 13. What the article 13 clause 2 speaks that proclaims and prohibits the state to make any law that is in contravention to the fundamental rights in any such law is made, then it would be void. That means the clause 1 is how spoken about the existing law or the laws that had been before the commencement of the constitution, and the clause 2 speaks about the future laws. That means any laws which will be made from here on should follow the guidelines or the framework that it should not violate the fundamental rights of the citizens. So, but in this case also, a doctrine was evolved by the Honorable Supreme Court, that is the doctrine of favor. Favor means giving up of the right. In simple words. So let us study what is that doctrine. Doctrine considers that a person is his own judge and will choose what is best for him. The doctrine of favor says that a person can put his right aside if he wants to. It not only talks about the individual rights and not it only talks about sorry it only talks about the individual rights and not the rights of the public interest. As we have studied the preamble, which you can refer in our earlier videos, scroll to our playlist, which where you will find the preamble and the explanation of each and every word. In that, we have studied that the constitution have been made by the people of or the citizens of India and have given such constitution to themselves. So, in such a scenario, the it is the individual should be acted and not the general public or the people as a whole should be considered while waiving of such right. And so, this is the meaning of the doctrine of favor in this sense. So, in the case of Bhairam versus State of Bombay in 1955, the Honorable Supreme Court held that the rights which are given in the Part 3 of the Constitution cannot be waived by any individual. That means, whoever are the citizens of India enjoys the fundamental rights to its entirety and it is inseparable from the uh, people or an individual or a citizen of India. Uh, Fundamental rights acts like a body and the soul, which are inseparable from each other. So, from the above decision, it was very clear by the Supreme Court that the fundamental rights of the people are those rights which cannot be waived off. Any action of any person that shows voluntary giving up one's fundamental right cannot be considered valid. Fundamental rights cannot be waived off under any circumstances. That means under Behram versus State of Bombay, the Supreme Court or the Honorable Supreme Court have very clearly said that the fundamental rights are the soul of an every individual citizen of India, which are inseparable from him or her in any of the conditions. And though that individual or citizen declares that he is giving up his fundamental rights, in that case also the fundamental rights cannot be waived from him. Again, coming to the further, the question still arises whether the non-citizens also have such right or not. So the Supreme Court again on this question have clarified in the case of State of Gujarat and another versus Sri Ambika Mills Limited in 1974, in which the Honorable Supreme Court held that with the advent of the Constitution of India, special rights were given only to the citizens, which render them protection against the post unconstitutional laws. But these provisions, although unconstitutional for the citizens, were not non-ist for the non-citizens like employed in this case, that is the Ambika Mills, which means the Supreme Court clearly says that if the particular act or the part of the act is against the fundamental right and become void, but that doesn't mean it will be void even for the non-citizens of India, be it the company, be it NRI or Indian origin people, any one of them. So it is these doctrines or these constitutions or these fundamental rights is only and only applicable to the citizen of India and not to the any other third person uh, that is not a citizen of India. Even the company, though they are considered the legal person, but they are not the citizen of India anymore. Now coming to the next provision, that is clause 3 of the article 13, which says speaks about the definition of the law, as we have read barely in the earlier. It says that clause 3 of the article consists of the word law and law in force. The law can be of following kinds. Means, for our convenience, we can divide the law into two kinds, that is statutory law and the customary laws. So, what are the statutory laws? These laws, which may be directly enacted by the legislature or by the other subordinate authorities under the delegated law making process or power. The delegated legislation appears under various names like rules, regulation, notification, and bylaws. That means any law which are made by the legislature or have been made by any other person who got the delegated legislative power by way of rules, regulation, notification, and bylaws will come under the category of the statutory laws. Whereas the customary laws means the law includes the customs and usages. That means in earlier times, customs was the main source of law, but now to a larger extent, it has been suspended by the statutory law. However, custom has not wholly lost its law creating efficiency. A reasonable and certain Asian custom is binding on the courts like the act of legislature as well. That means any any rules that the peoples are following from the ages uh, are known as the customs and usages, and it cannot be suspended by any of the acts which will be made by the legislative authorities or by the authorities that has a delegated legislative powers. This is how the laws for our convenience we have characterized into two parts. But the question before the Honorable Supreme Court came now and then in various cases, with the Saira Banu, uh, again in the Triple Talaq case, again in the recently Sabrimala case, and various others. Recent, so, upholding the latest case have mentioned here. In 2018, the Indian Young Lawyers Association versus State of Kerala, which is famously known as the Sabrimala case, dealt with the same question whether the personal laws will come under the purview of Article 13 or not. The court on this question have clearly held that the individual is at the heart of the Indian Constitution, and as far as the law is affected to the individual or the citizen of India, it will fall under Article 13 3 of the Constitution. That means, as if you go through the preamble of the Constitution, where we have seen that the Constitution have been made by the people and forced upon themselves. That means by the citizen of the citizens, by the people and for the people. In the same way, the Constitution have interpreted on the same lines, that the laws are involved around the citizen of India or the people of India, and if any of the laws affects their fundamental rights, then such laws, be it the personal law, be it the customary law, be it the statutory law, will fall under the category of Article 13. So now coming to the next provision, that is clause 4 of Article 13. What it speaks that from the by the 24th Amendment, this provisions was included in the Article 13, and because of this, the question arose before the judiciary now and then: does the law includes the amendment in the Constitution or not? That means whether the amendment falls under the purview of the law as, as it has been defined under Article 13 or not. But this question brings a big uh, tussle of power between the judiciary and the Parliament of India, as the power of amendment is with the Parliament of India to amend Constitution under 368, uh, and whereas the judiciary is supreme and as it acts as a protector of the law. So it's a very big tussle between the legislative power of the government and the judiciary as to whether the laws which are made by the legislative which can even amend the fundamental rights of the citizens will be valid or not, or will fall under the purview of the Article 13, so that the judiciary can also have the power to scrutinize those laws or not. So this question was first decided in the case of the Sankari Prasad versus Union of India in 1951, where the first amendment to the Constitution uh, that was made to the fundamental rights was challenged on the ground that since the amendment had the effect of the fundamental right, it is not valid under Article 13. The Supreme Court rejected the contention and held that law in Clause 2 did not include law made by Parliament under Article 368 of the Constitution. It the same uh, who the decision was given in the Sankari Prasad was again upheld by the Honorable Supreme Court in the Sajjan Singh versus State of Rajasthan in 1965 is as well. But later on, in the case of Golaknath in 1967, the Supreme Court held that the word law in clause 2 of Article 13 includes the amendment to the Constitution, and consequently it takes away if it takes away the fundamental right, then it can declare it as void and ultra vires. That means earlier the judiciary denied that the amendment which are done by the way of 368 will not fall under the purview of uh, Article 13, but the in the Golaknath case, it overruled and said that the amendment will fall under the purview of 13, and the judiciary can uh, give the null and void effect if it violates the fundamental rights of the citizen. But here came the landmark judgment of the Supreme Court in the Keshwananda Bharati's case in 1973, which overruled the decision which was given earlier in the Golaknath case, and held that the Constitution's 24th Amendment Act, which inserted the clause 4 in Article 13, sorry, and clause 3 in Article 368 was valid, and it was decided that all provisions in the Constitution, including the fundamental rights, can be amended, but the basic structure would not be amended. That means balancing both the tussle of both the judiciary and the legislature. Uh, it gave a midway to the both the parties, to both the powers or both the pillars of the constitution, that though the legislature power can amend the constitution in any way as it wants under Article 368, but it cannot amend the basic structure or the basis on which the constitution is made. It cannot move that basis in any way if it violates the basic structure which have been defined by the Honorable Supreme Court in a number of judgments. Then the such amendments or the provisions done by such amendments will be given the null and void effect then and there only. So this is all about the interpretation of all the clauses of Article 13. But there are some exceptions to Article 13, uh, to which the fundamental right and even the Article 13 will not be applicable. So what are such articles to, or what are such conditions or the areas to which the Article 13 and even the fundamental rights cannot be levied on, can be Article 3, 31A, Article 31B, Article 31C, Article 33 and 34 of the Indian Constitution. So, if you guys want to study all this, why this Article 13 is not applicable to all these provisions, and what are all mentioned in those articles, how to want to, if you want to study all this in detail, then please keep in touch with our videos and watch our upcoming videos for that, uh, where we will explain why and why those articles are kept out of the purview of Article 13 and the fundamental rights part. So while concluding this session on Article 13, we can see, after wholly recalling the session of ours, that to no one should the right and justice be delayed and sold or denied. It is promise that is given by our constitution. So while concluding this article, we can say that the farmers of the constitution had a very clear perception about the part 3 of the constitution in their minds, that was to protect the fundamental rights. So the Article 13 was brought into protection. So basically, Article 13 is a regulatory provisions confirming no rights of its own, but acting as a supplementary provisions that exists only to protect the infringement of Part 3 of the Constitution. That means it acts as a warning to the legislature and maintains a system of checks and balances, as it provides the power of judicial review to the courts. In a democratic country like ours, it is necessary to ensure no organ of the state abuses the power which have been conferred to it by the Constitution, as the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and no other law which are prevailing or enforceable in the country are is above the Constitution. Even any of the authorities which are functioning in the country are above the Constitution of India. That means the Constitution of India is supreme and the law of the land. So Article 13 fulfills the dual objective. Firstly, it regulates the regulates, and secondly it acts as the teeth of the fundamental rights. It regulates means it gives a power of review to the judiciary to scrutinize whether any of the acts which are in force in country, whether they violate any of the fundamental rights or not, and as if any of those fundamental right sorry any of those acts violates those fundamental rights which are given in the part 3 of the constitution, then it can give the effect of null and void in the interest of the citizens of India. So if you guys understood all the provisions of Article 13 and how it gives the protection to the fundamental citizens of India. And if you guys have any kind of queries, then do mention in the comment section, and also let us know how you like today's session, and please like our video, share with others as well, and subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to press the bell icon which will keep you updated with our upcoming videos. So now meeting you in the next video. Till then, stay healthy, stay fit. Thank you and bye bye.